Higher education or postgraduate applications require significant investment, not only in terms of time and efforts, but also in terms of money. And in this regard, whether to take the GRE or GMAT exam is one of the important considerations. In this video, we are going to show whether you should still consider taking the GRE or GMAT exam as a part of your postgraduate application preparations to the business schools, particularly in the US, Canada, or Australia. This video is a response to the speculation that you don't need to take the standardized tests like the GRE or the GMAT as a postgraduate applicant to the business schools. For the sake of better understanding and reaching to a solid conclusion, we will take 3 sample universities from each of these countries: USA, Canada, and Australia. Again, for the very same reason and having a broader perspective, we will consider the QS World University Ranking and divide the universities in 3 different tiers. We will assume that the universities that are ranked in between 1 to 199 by the most recent QS World University Ranking are first tier. Universities that are ranked in between 200 and 599 are second tier. And the third tier universities are those that stand beyond 600 in the ranking. Let's start with the USA. And we have chosen Stanford University as a sample first-tier university. The Stanford Graduate School of Business clearly mentions that if you are applying to their MBA program, you have to take either the GRE or the GMAT test. The very same rule applies to their PhD program. However, some programs accept only the GRE and reject the GMAT test. As a second-tier university in the USA, we have chosen the University of Virginia. The MBA program at the University of Virginia's Business School accepts a wide range of standardized tests, including the GRE and the GMAT. The school's website states that to be considered for an admission to their PhD program, you have to submit either a GRE or a GMAT score. We have chosen the University of Texas at El Paso as the sample third-tier university in the US. As we can see, GRE or GMAT scores are not mandatory to be considered for an admission to their MBA program. But unlike the MBA program, the PhD program requires you to submit a GRE or a GMAT score. Now, Canada. We have chosen the University of Toronto as a sample first-tier university in Canada. The business school at the University of Toronto, namely the Rotman School of Management, requires you to submit either a GRE or a GMAT score for both MBA and PhD programs. Initially, we have chosen Dalhousie University as a sample second-tier university in Canada. The university's business school doesn't require the GRE or the GMAT scores, neither for their MBA nor for their PhD program. However, as our research indicates, it's unusual in the Canadian university's context not to ask for a GRE or a GMAT score for an admission to an MBA or a PhD program. Therefore, to have more accurate and broader perspective, we have considered another second-tier university in Canada. Simon Fraser University. Simon Fraser University's business school requires you to submit either a GRE or a GMAT score to be considered for an admission to their PhD program. And to be considered for an admission to their MBA program, you have to have 550 in the GMAT test. Alternatively, you have to have 155 in each of the 2 sections of the GRE test. The MBA program at Manitoba University requires you to submit a GMAT score of 500, or an equivalent GRE score. The PhD program at Manitoba University's Business School requires you to submit a GMAT score of minimum 600, or an equivalent GRE score. Now let's turn our focus on Australia, the University of Melbourne, certainly a first-tier university in Australia. You have to have a GMAT score of minimum 560 or a GRE score of minimum 310 to be considered for an admission to the MBA program. And the PhD program requires a GMAT score of minimum 640 or a GRE score of minimum 321 to be considered for an admission. As the second and third tier university in Australia, we have chosen the University of South Australia and Charles Darwin University respectively. Our thorough research shows that none of these universities require you to submit a GMAT or a GRE score to be considered for an admission to the MBA or PhD program. Concluding remarks. We strongly refute the speculation that you don't need to take the GRE or the GMAT test for postgraduate education at the business schools, particularly in the US and Canada. You may have some exceptions in the case of MBA programs in the US and Canadian business schools. But for the PhDs, it's kind of a mandatory requirement to have a valid GRE or a GMAT score. But the Australian universities are a different case. If you don't consider the very best business institutions in Australia, including the University of Melbourne and the University of Sydney, you are good to go. According to our research, only a limited number of Australian universities require a valid GRE or GMAT score for postgraduate education at their business schools.